in that minute's time, I figured I'd do some stand-up comedy. This is the end of the show. That's all you get. Okay, that was also the shortest minute ever. Andrew and Laurent and I were talking. We figured that it'd be good for me to give the presentation and for them to do the MC role. So we're gonna fly through these slides today. Thank you all for being here. I wanna be the probably millionth person to welcome y'all, not only to Texas, but also to JNUC 2023, so thank you. Today, we're going to be talking about securing Wi-Fi, and these two gentlemen, Laurent and Andrew from our professional services team, are going to be helping us out with that today. I do want to address one quick housekeeping item, and that is this year, Q&A is a little different. We do have folks joining from TV land, and as such, they're going to be able to submit questions virtually. So within the JNUC app, you can open it up, go to My Events, and access Q&A for this particular session within the JNUC app. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laurent and Andrew. Thanks, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour.
So we've got our forward-looking statement disclaimer up here. It says any predictions we make about the future should not be trusted. But no, we're not covering too much about that. So this clicker doesn't appear to be working. Excuse me, there we go, it's come now. So yeah, you want secure Wi-Fi, tell me more. And next slide. And here we are. So Laurent, you would care to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Laurent Pertois. I'm a senior professional services engineer in EMEA, the EMEA region. So I'm based in France. I will do my best to have my best French accent if you want. No, kidding. I've been doing this job for many years in the Mac environment for even more years, using computers for too many years. And I'm happy to be here. Andrew, up to you.
Yes, I work on the same team as Laurent. You might hear from my accent. I'll try and put on my best British accent for you. I'm based in the UK. I've been with Jamf for 4.5 years. In terms of what I like to do in my spare time, I like to collect really old computers, or as Laurent calls them, computers.
Yeah. Why do you call them old? We're good.
So, just a bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be outlining why deploying secure Wi-Fi and having that conversation can sometimes be challenging. We're going to be looking at how you would deploy examples of those networks with Jamf Pro, including methods of certificate delivery or certificate-based authentication. And then we'll also have a bit of a discussion about which one might be right for you and your environment. Okay, so we're going to begin with what the challenge is. So that question of we want secure Wi-Fi comes up an awful lot in our line of work. And really it doesn't quite get to the question. It doesn't quite get to the answer. There's a more complex answer that comes along with that. So if you can all just take a few moments to have a bit of a think about your experiences with 802.1x or any manner of secure Wi-Fi that you've been deploying in your environments, and think about some of the challenges that you ran into doing that. So we've got a couple of examples up here as well. So you might find that the things that you were thinking about there, maybe they match up with what we've got on screen here. Because often it can be very challenging to deploy these networks because as Jamf admins, you're not going to be the only ones who are involved in this process. We have a couple of examples up here. There's a lot of specialist knowledge that might not be contained within your particular silo, within your particular speciality. So you might need to be talking to people from the security teams or from ADCS, from Active Directory Certificate Services. Maybe you need to involve your Windows admins or your AD admins. And the fact that you've got all of these different people, often the main challenge is just managing to bring everybody together and have that conversation and have them understand the needs of Mac networks and deploying certificates or networks to Mac, and for you to understand the particular requirements that they have from their services and solutions that they're deploying. So yes, often the question that comes up, it's a very simple question, as we say, but as professional services engineers, it's our job to get a bit more into the detail and try and understand why. So the format we're going to be using for the rest of the presentation is that I'm going to be playing the character of a Jamf admin, and Laurent is going to be playing the character of a professional services engineer.
Which I'm not going to be playing anyway.
Well, you're not really, no. Yeah. It's just a different professional services engineer.
Oh, okay.
And we are going to be looking through this at how some of these conversations might start, and then what the resolutions for those be, how we deploy those particular solutions in Jamf Pro. And we're going to start simple and then build up from there. So, how do I deploy a Wi-Fi network to my Macs, Laurent?
Sure. So if I understand correctly, you want secure Wi-Fi, but
Yes.
you need to tell me more.
Okay.
What do you exactly expect from
Well-
this Wi-Fi from the end user experience?
Yeah, so we need to put a network out there. It needs to have a password.
Oh, okay. That's pretty simple. And you're right, this is very picky. So we have a very simple solution. It's called PSK, or pre-shared key. The idea is that we're going to make a profile with Jamf Pro, send that profile to the devices. Yes, and then once the devices are going to get that profile, magically, they're going to connect to Wi-Fi. Soon.
Any minute now.
Here we are. We're connected to Wi-Fi.
Great. Okay, so let's go through how we're going to build that in my Jamf Pro environment. If you could play the video for me, please, Laurent.
Trying.
There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my profile name here. It's very important as name. I'm going to put it in a suitable category as well. I'm going to find the network payload, and then I'm going to configure that. And then we're going to go in, we're going to give it my, my super secure network SSID there.
Yep.
Because it's super secure. And we're going to select security type here. It's going to be WPA-personal, one of those options in there. Go ahead and put that password in. And jobs are good. And there we go. Got a Wi-Fi network.
Yeah.
Right.
All good.
Okay.
Then
Well, I'm
you
going
just
to
need to scope that.
check with my network admin that
Sure.
that's okay. So he's telling me now that we need users to authenticate with their username and a password.
Oh, okay. So that's a little bit of a different story, as you can imagine, because we can't make a single profile like this. But let's have a look. And what you're really looking for is called PEAP.
Okay.
Yeah. Protected Enhanced Authentication Protocol. So the basic is going to be more or less the same. We're going to build a profile on your Jamf Pro. We're going to send it to your devices. And now we also include in this profile a certificate because we need to trust some other elements from your network. Don't worry, we're going to get that from your network admin. I'm pretty sure it's going to be cooperative. Once the device gets this profile, it's going to try to connect to the Wi-Fi, and it's going to be redirected to, going to ask for the user to type their username and password as you requested. So they're going to type that. Fantastic. And then we're going to connect to what is called an authenticator. It's a device on your network that is responsible for that, who's going to then ask to the authentication server, often called a Radius server. You may have heard that name. I don't know, maybe?
Never heard of it.
Okay, it's a cool guy. Then the Radius server is going to say, oh, we're good. That's the username and password we know. We agree, thumbs up. We respond to the authenticator. The authenticator is going to say, yes, we agree that this device can go on the network.
Fantastic.
And you have secure Wi-Fi as you requested.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what I asked for. So if you just give me the moment, I'm going to go and speak to my network admin again and just check that that's going to.
Don't you want to try it before?
Sorry?
Not
Oh, yeah,
want to
apologies.
try.
I need to try this in Jamf Pro.
Ah,
I'm getting
just to
ahead
be
of myself
sure.
here. So we're going to go in here. We're going to go and put a name in for our profile, put it in a category again. But this time, the certificates that I've got from my network admin, I'm going to go ahead and add them in here. And there's quite a few to add in our particular case here. So first off, I'm going to add the root certificate for our CA. So we're using self-signed certificates here. We need to be able to trust that. So we need to deploy that certificate to the Macs. So I go ahead and upload that one. And in this case, I'm not going to allow export from the keychain for this one. It depends on your environment what's most appropriate. Then we go back in here again and we add another certificates payload. This time I've got my intermediate CA. So in our organization, we don't issue certificates directly from the certificate authority. We have an additional CA in between that we use as an intermediary. Again, change my settings on here. And then there's yet one more certificate to add to this chain here. And just to note, we can put these in either as a bundle or separately. I tend to prefer doing them separately just because it's a bit easier to manage. And this is going to be the certificate for the Radius server itself, so we know we can trust it.
Yep.
So upload that now.
We don't want to talk to people we don't know.
Absolutely.
As Mommy said.
And then we're going to go and find the network payload, as we did before. I'm going to go ahead and put my network name. The SSID needs to go in again there. The security type this time, we're going to choose some kind of enterprise. And here we choose PEAP. And then within the trust section, we need to say that we want to trust all 3 of those certificates. Oh, we've jumped ahead here. So yes, I am now going to check with my network admin if that's OK. So the network admin's come back and said, actually, we don't want to use a username and a password. We need to use a certificate.
Okay.
So I've got my...
Is it his last decision?
Sorry?
Is it his last decision?
Oh, probably not. Well,
okay.
Certainly not.
We'll see. Okay, so instead of using the username and password, because probably we don't want to ask people to type this because they don't like to type their passwords. On the other hand, 1, 2, 3, 4 is not that hard. But anyway, we're going to use another system which is called EAP-TLS, and this time it looks very similar, if you remember from the diagram I showed you before. It looks very similar to the previous one because we still have our Jamf Pro device, authenticator, and Radius. The main difference is going to be in how we authenticate against the Radius. So we're going to send a profile, maybe. Yes, a profile that contains a certificate, specific certificate for your computer to the computer, and this profile will also contain all the information, the certificates for your Wi-Fi. So this is sent to the computer. Here we are. Computer is happy. Then computer goes to the authenticator. Here we are. And we'll, instead of showing, sending the username and the password and having people type them, we're just going to show the certificate we got from step 1. That is specific to your computer, to each computer, to the authenticator. The authenticator is going to ask to the Radius server, says, OK, got this guy who showed me this certificate. Do you agree? Can we let him in? And Radius is going to say, yeah, all good. We love him. And here we are. You got Wi-Fi.
Wonderful. Excellent.
Happy?
Always. So that step 1, how do we get that certificate onto the device?
Oh, easy. Anything certificate is easy. Everyone agrees? Come on. OK, so the main ID, apparently from what your admin told us, is that you're using a SCEP server. And we're going to tell Jamf Pro to act as a SCEP proxy, because we don't want all your devices to go to your SCEP server. So only your Jamf Pro server is going to talk to the SCEP server. So you know what a SCEP server is, by the way?
I don't know. It's
you don't know?
Some sort of beehive, isn't it?
Not exactly. So a SCEP server is a special certificate server that is, so SCEP stands for Simple Certificate Enrollment Protocol. And as everyone knows, as soon as you have simple in an acronym for a protocol, it's a lie. SMTP, same for SCEP. But we try to make it as simple as possible. So the main idea is that we're going to configure your Jamf Pro server to be the SCEP proxy who's going to talk to your SCEP server. And then we're going to send a first profile to the computer. Yes, here we are. And that profile is going to instruct the Mac or the device to request a certificate, a specific one, to Jamf Pro, as if Jamf Pro was a certificate server, which is not. Exactly, as I told you, it's a proxy. So it's going to create the private key, then send the request to the Jamf Pro server. And the Jamf Pro server, based on the configuration we did, it's going to go to the SCEP server that we have on the left. and here and say, hey, I would like a certificate with this kind of information. Can you do that for me? And as the SCEP server is a nice guy, it's going to send that back. So say, yeah, okay, first we authenticate, of course, but and then we request, sorry. And then the certificate is going to be delivered to Jamf. Here we are. And then Jamf is going to send it to the device. That was your step one.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Don't know why we tried to expand on that. It was so easy.
Yeah.
You
Cool.
want to build your profile?
Sure. Let's go ahead and build that profile out.
Well, first, we need to configure the SCEP proxy.
Absolutely.
Let's
So
go.
I'm going to go ahead and configure that in Jamf Pro first. Right. So I've got some information that I've been given here by my network admin who maintains the SCEP server. I'm going to head into the PKI certificates menu, into management certificate template, and then external CA. And I'm going to enable Jamf Pro as a SCEP proxy. And then I've got this whole bunch of URLs that you may or may not be able to read in the grainy writing up there. I'm going to paste in here. So I've got the base URL for the SCEP server at the top there, got the name of the certificate authority, and then I'm going to go ahead and select Dynamic Microsoft CA from that list. And into there I can put in the URL to the SCEP admin page. So that's where we go and do the challenge, where we go and authenticate. I then need to provide a service account in there that will allow the Jamf Pro server to go and authenticate against that. I also can get the fingerprint or thumbprint from the SCEP admin page and add that in there. And then in here I need to put in a signing certificate as well, just so Jamf Pro can prove it is who it says it is. And then in this case, I've got to put in a password, key store password, which has been given earlier, Jamf1234, super secure. And then this is an optional step here. Because we're using a self-signed search, we need to provide that to the Jamf cloud server in this case, so it trusts that server. So we've got both parts there, so they both trust each other.
Simple.
Yeah, very simple. Putting the simple into SCEP. Okay, let's see the next slide. So, how do we actually put this into action? We've done that bit there, adding in Jamf Pro, the SCEP proxy. How are we going to put this into a profile? So, already got a certificates payload in there from before. That's got our root CA certificate. It's got our issuing CA, our intermediate, and it's also got our radius certificate in there.
Same as before.
Same as before. So we're going to go into the SCEP payload this time. And from in here, we can just go ahead and put in a name. We can choose an amount of time to read, before which we can redistribute the profile. We can put in the subject here. So this is how we're going to tell the NDES server what kind of, what name of certificate we want. So we can specify that, in our case, username @domain.com. And then there's a few other settings on there we can go and add in to do with how we should handle that certificate. So now that's been added in, we're going to go across to the network payload. Quite similar to before. We need to go ahead and put in an SSID, so the name of the network. And for protocol, it's a secure EAP-TLS this time. And then we have to add an identity certificate. So this is going to tell the computer the certificate it should use to identify itself.
Yep.
And I kind of wish I hadn't clicked through that so fast on the previous slides. But then we add in, again, all the trust that's in there.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Well, let's go and check that out with my network admin again, my certificates admin, and see if he's happy with that.
Let's see what he comes back with.
Brilliant. Well, that SCEP proxy setup you told us about there, we have an NDES server that we're already using for our Windows fleet. So, isn't that great?
Are you using Intune?
Yeah.
We need another one. Oh. Yeah, I know. Intune, so when he says NDES, just an apart, NDES is the Microsoft name for SCEP. So don't worry, they're the same. But when you set up NDES with Intune, Intune takes full ownership of your NDES server, and you can't use it with any other service. So that's why we need another NDES server. You can have as many as you want. Is that okay?
Yeah, well, let's have a look at what it would look like with the Azure application proxy in this.
You want an application proxy also? Yes. Okay, so you don't want to show your NDES server directly to Jamf Pro. You want to put something in between.
Yes.
And that's going to be an Azure application proxy.
Absolutely.
Easy. So, if you remember a few slides ago, we had something very similar with the device, Jamf Pro, and the NDES server. What we're going to add is Azure in between, and Azure Application Proxy is something very, very common in organizations. You may already have it, even if you don't know it. Just ask your Azure admin guys. They probably are aware of what it is. So the idea of the Azure Application Proxy is that's going to act as a proxy between Jamf Pro and your Ender server, so your Ender server is not directly on the internet. The way it's going to work is probably more or less the same. We send the device the profile. The device is going to generate the request to create a certificate. Yes, here we are. So it sends the request to Jamf, who's, remember, for the device, Jamf is the certificate provider. It doesn't know that there's something behind. So we send the request. Jamf says, OK, give me a minute. I need to create the certificate. And Jamf will go to authenticate against the Ender server again. And we go through the Azure Application Proxy. Azure Application Proxy, Ender says, yeah, you're authenticated, all good. Doesn't really send a key, it was just to show you're good. Then we can send the real request, and it will again go through Azure Application Proxy, and we get a certificate back sent to Jamf. We'll then send it to the device. So really, really, it's the same. It's just we put an extra intermediate, but the Azure Application Proxy is quite simple to set up and easy to use, and quite common in large organizations, in even smaller ones. Mm. So now I have a question for you. Yeah, sorry.
I'm supposed to be asking the questions.
Because we've done everything to create certificate that you're going to use for your Wi-Fi. But do you know, or do you think you might need a certificate, this very same certificate, or a different one for other services like VPN or whatever?
Yeah, we've been looking at bringing a VPN, and we need to get a different certificate template for that.
OK. So forget everything I told you. Who knows Man in Black? I'm going to flash you. So forget everything I told you about the SCEP proxy, the Ender server, the SCEP, everything. We're going to need something different. As you're using a Microsoft PKI, we have another product which is called ADCS connector. Sounds great, right?
Yeah.
It's great. So the idea of the ADCS connector is we're going to install a specific server in your environment, the ADCS connector, and the ADCS connector is going to be able to request to get a certificate for us, and any kind of certificate, because the big problem with SCEP, it's limited to one model of certificate only. So this way we can move on. I clicked too much, sorry. So the way it's going to work this time, first, Jamf is going to connect to the ADCS connector, and for that, we use a very specific kind of authentication. We use a certificate to authenticate against the ADCS connector. That certificate is created during the installation of the connector, but it can be a different one. I will expand on that later. So we first authenticate against the ADCS connector. ADCS connector says, yes, I trust you. You can ask me whatever you want, as long as it's a certificate. So then Jamf will say, OK, I want a certificate for this device with that name, with that information, using that template from your PKI. And the server hosting the ADCS connector is going to connect to the real PKI, which is called ADCS, as AD Certificate Service, with that specific request. And in return, we get a certificate and its private key sent back to Jamf. And then Jamf is going to put everything into the configuration profile that contains all the details about Wi-Fi and whatever you need, send it to the device. And we can do that for Wi-Fi, VPN, whatever you want. And every time we can use a different template in your PKI. I don't know if you're familiar with templates. It's like what it says in the tin. Templates contains different kind of information. They are decided by your network or PKI admin. They will give you the name. They will tell you you need to use that and only that. OK, so no problem. Just put that in Jamf. And we're going to have a look at how we're going to do this setup.
Absolutely. So we've already gone ahead and installed our ADCS connector. And out of that, we've got some information. So in a sense, similar to what we looked at before with the SCEP proxy. So in my little text edit document up there, I've got a few strings of text. I'm going to head into PKI certificates again. I've copied some files that the installer for the ADCS connector created over onto my Mac here. We go in and create a new certificate authority for ADCS. So in here, I can put in the fully qualified domain name of my ADCS connector. Get this the right way around.
The first one is your PKI.
Oh, sorry, PKI is the first one. Thanks for keeping me right, Laurent. And then that one's the URL for my ADCS connector. In here, I'm going to put in the service certificate. So the one that should identify the Active Directory certificates connector. Add that one in. And then I can go ahead and add the certificate, the client certificate.
That's the one used for authentication. If you remember the previous diagram I showed, the first step, we authenticate with a specific certificate. That's this one.
Brilliant. So, quite nice and simple there. A few more prerequisites for building this solution out, but yeah, generally pretty easy to set up within Jamf Pro. And how would we set this up with a configuration profile to deploy a network? So this time, we can go back into our now familiar certificates payload.
You've seen that before, right?
Yeah, we've seen deja vu on this one. But this time, what we can do is we can add another certificate in here.
Yeah.
And if we go ahead and scroll on down, you see that we've got an option. Instead of upload, we can select our certificate authority through ADCS connector. And here we can put the name of the certificate, so we can identify which one it is. And then we've got the certificate subject again. So CN, or common name, equals, we can use payload variables here, so $username at domain.com, make sure it's got the correct name for the user on it. And then we have that all-important template name there. So this is what allows us to go and get different templates.
Yep.
So very flexible. And from there, we're going to head over to the networks payload.
Been there before.
Been there before, been there, done that. And this is very, very similar to the SCEP proxy. Go ahead and put our SSID in, security type enterprise, choose TLS, choose our identity certificate, which is going to come up as whatever we called it in the previous menu, and then we would go and do our trust. But we've looked at a lot of different types of certificate deployments there. Which one's going to be right for me?
The one you prefer.
Okay.
No.
I was hoping you'd tell me that.
Yeah, so we can expand on that if you click next. There we are. So we showed two different kind of certificate acquisition systems, so the SCEP proxy, or SCEP anyway, and ADCS connector. The main advantage of SCEP proxy to start with, it's quite simple to set up, really. For once, I'm not lying when I say it's simple. There's a few things to take care of, but it's quite simple. ADCS connector, it's usually simple, but it can go crazy, crazy complicated. I will show some more examples tomorrow if you want to attend my sessions about certificates.
SCEP proxy is compatible with many different kinds of PKIs, not just Microsoft PKI.
Yep.
That said, the majority of the environments we work in, it is overwhelmingly the case that we'll be working with Active Directory certificates.
Yes.
So on the ADCS connector side, that has to be specifically a Microsoft PKI. But then again, it could be different in our territory in EMEA than it is in the US.
Yeah,
elsewhere.
it says in the name ADCS.
Yes.
There's a very good reason for that. One thing I mentioned just previously, SCEP proxy is limited to a very single template. So if you need to have two different kind of certificates, if your PKI admin says, okay, this one is called Wi-Fi, but for the VPN, it has to look different, you're stuck. You have a problem because we can only get one single template associated with the SCEP server. So hopefully, if you have an ADCS or a Microsoft PKI, then you can move to the ADCS connector because there's no limitation in terms of the templates you can use. Because if you remember when Andrew showed us in the little video, when we create in the certificate parts in the profile, we say, okay, this one is going to be to acquire the certificate from ADCS connector. There's a specific field that says template name. So this is where you're going to type the name of the template you were provided by your PKI admin. And this is going to say, yeah, when we're going to request that certificate, we're going to say we want it with that specific template.
And then another consideration would be the options for putting a proxy in between that service and your Jamf Pro server. So in the case of a SCEP proxy, you can use a reverse proxy, or you can use an Azure application proxy, which, as we mentioned before, is a pretty common way, a pretty simple way of providing an external face for an internal service in a secure way. And then on the ADCS connector side, you can have a reverse proxy, but you cannot use an Azure application proxy. And as Laurent mentioned a little earlier, one of the things that comes up very commonly, I think, for us is that often we have that conversation about the Azure app proxy, and it turns out that that particular NDES or SCEP server is in use already with Intune. So it's worth stressing the point that if Intune is in use, you've installed the Intune connector on that particular SCEP server or NDES server, then you would need to have a separate SCEP or NDES server for Jamf to integrate with. So yeah, again, this comes up very, very commonly.
Yep.
So I'll mention it here.
Just to expand on what you said, we can't use Azure App Proxy for ADCS connector for a single reason. Azure App Proxy does not support authenticating using a certificate, also known as mutual TLS authentication. So this is why we use that kind of authentication, because we think it's more secure than username and password. But Azure Proxy only supports Azure username and password. So there are other ways to do it. I will expand again tomorrow. Same time, Ballroom D. Take your seats. That's filling very quickly.
Absolutely. So wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening to us waffle on. We will now be taking some questions, if there are any.
We definitely have some questions. So I'm going to start with a question from Jacob. Asks, we are planning to transition from EAP-PEAP authentication to EAP-TLS. After ADCS configurations are working, what would you recommend for transitioning to the new/replace configuration profiles without causing radius trust issues or loss of wireless connectivity while also having minimal user interaction?
Oh.
Easy one, right?
Laurent, you can take this one.
Put everyone on holiday for 2 weeks. Send everyone home. No, the few times I have had to discuss this with customers, the main conclusion is we're going to have to run both at the same time. So two kind of authentication, so that whatever is the status of the device, is it still on the old authentication or the new method of authentication, it can connect. And then you have to roll out the new profile to the devices while you keep the old one. Once it's fully rolled out, you can remove the old one, and then they will start using the new method of authentication. I'm pretty sure Cyril had to do that. He's knocking, like, yeah. Before he did that, he had no gray hair. Me neither. So yeah, it's a simple question of making sure that you have some kind of recovery, like both are available at the same time, and then slowly roll out everything new, remove everything old, make sure everyone has everything they need, and then it will work.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Does Jamf have ACME protocol integration on their Jamf Pro roadmap?
Can you repeat the question?
Does Jamf have ACME protocol integration on their Jamf Pro roadmap?
I know we're working on that, but not yet for ADCS connector and SCEP and everything.
Okay.
So.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have a question from Hank. We configured 802.1x using EAP-TLS, did the configuration like you demonstrated in the keynote. Some of our users did a request to select the cert before they can connect to Wi-Fi and then enter an admin password. Some users are getting this pop-up on every restart. How can I solve this problem?
Okay,
so I think that would require more digging in, but my first thinking is that these users are not admin and they're required to get access to the certificate by proving their username and password. So that's something that happens depending on some settings.
Yeah.
We would need a Jamf Pro server to show that, but there might be a way to making sure that you select a proper certificate for authentication. If you have multiple certificates that contains a private key, sometimes macOS is confused as, I'm not sure which one you want me to use. I'm going to ask. I don't know. macOS panicking, So asking to his best friend, the user, who is like, I have no clue.
And
Let's call help desk.
to that point about the password entry, you find that if that certificate is been deployed into the system keychain, that's why if they're a standard user, they're being asked for authentication. So it might be a case of just having a look at where that certificate's being deployed to. Of course, user-based certificates, as in deploying on the user MDM channel, is a whole other kettle of fish. And
and also, if you deploy it in the user keychain, it means that your Mac is not connected when you're logged out.
Absolutely.
So no management. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay, next up on the docket here. While using Jamf Connect, Azure IDP login doesn't load because secure Wi-Fi is not connected. What is the best solution to allow Wi-Fi connection before a user can log in?
Oh boy.
Need to take this one, Laurent?
Do you have 2 hours?
I suppose all of these answers there's a sort of caveat with it depends very much on the environment. I would presume then from the question that the network that's being deployed is one that isn't supported at the login screen. So we end up with a bit of a chicken and egg situation sometimes, that if that certificate is deployed into the user keychain, it's not available at the login window, as Laurent just mentioned there.
Or if it's PEAP.
Yeah,
Or if
exactly.
it's using
Or if it's PEAP. It's not supported at that point, which I believe on macOS is only supported in a login window configuration with a, well, you'd need a bound Mac then, wouldn't you, for that? Yeah. So one of the things we do quite commonly is deploying what is, in air quotes, a user certificate, but to the system keychain. And what we mean by that is that we would put the name of the user on it, but then put it into the system keychain. And one of my colleagues, Sean Rabbit, I think described this quite well with a metaphor about where you keep your driving license. So if you're going to keep your driving license, you keep it in the car if you're the only person that drives the car. So maybe that helps to illustrate what we're talking about there. So in this case, if the user is the only user who uses that Mac, we can potentially address the device as if it were the user in a sense. We don't necessarily have to have that same distinction. So it's pretty common that, and again, in the examples we had on screen there, we were using a common name on the certificates of CN equals $username, so putting in the payload variable from Jamf Pro of the username, but it was a device-based configuration profile. Yep. So that certificate with the username was going into the system keychain, and that would work in an environment with Jamf Connect. So
I have a slide about that tomorrow again. I'm doing a great job of.
Well, he's really pumping up his talk tomorrow.
Great job explaining, what we call user certificates and user profile and so on. I'll show that tomorrow. Tomorrow, I don't remember the number of my station. It's called Jamf and Certificates. You can search for it.
Love it. And it depends is the most IT answer ever.
Always.
Yeah, that's great.
That's why we have conversations.
Okay, so next up here, can you issue both device and user certificates via the different templates with TLS EAP?
Yeah.
Okay. That was almost too easy.
Do you want to expand on that one, Laurent?
ADCS connector. As soon as you have more than one template, the answer is ADCS connector.
Yeah.
Okay. How does the SCEP server get the Wi-Fi certificate to the endpoint when that certificate is required to get on the network in the first place?
Well, it doesn't, I suppose, if that's the situation.
That's the chicken and egg. At some point, you need to connect to something that lets you eat your Jamf Pro server. So it could be you connect to a public Wi-Fi, you have an enrollment Wi-Fi, I don't know. It can be multiple choices. You connect to Ethernet, you do that from home, because the home is the easiest. You never have 802.1x at home, unless you're a bit crazy. Or you want to experiment. Okay, well, better. So yeah, it's a question of finding a moment where, there's a moment where you need to enroll and you can't be on that secure network because you don't have yet everything you need and everything is going to come as soon as you're enrolled.
Yeah.
So, yep.
And very commonly, we work with customers who may have a dedicated enrollment network, or in some cases, they use their guest network at least to do their very initial enrollments. And then when Jamf Pro is on the machine, that's the point at which we go ahead and deploy all the certificates, switch it over to the secure network and go from there. And then really, I suppose, in the context of that, that's one of the beauties of something like the SCEP proxy workflow, in the often the sensitivity to accessing these services is that we don't want them just to be open to anyone on the internet, because they are sensitive services. So in that particular case, we can just lock that down to the IPs of, if you're hosted in Jamf Cloud, for example, and those are all publicly available through our website. So you can go and look them up, give them to your firewall admins, and then they can put them in.
They're not.
No?
No. That's the other way around.
No, those ones are the inbound ones.
Yeah, but inbound, are you sure we publish them? Because that's a lot of AWS IPs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not the ones going outbound, but the ones coming inbound. It's still a lot.
You'll have to show me.
We'll sort this out between us. We'll take this outside.
Anyway, you need to be able to access your Jamf Pro server and also to talk to Apple.
Yep.
APNS, 10.0.0.0/8. Easy.
Okay. Thanks, Shella. I think we probably have time for one or two more. Is there a method to use Jamf Connect stored credentials to send username and password using PEAP to authenticate instead of having a user enter their username and password manually? We have a Aruba ClearPass that's expecting a certificate and username and password.
Never tried that.
No. So was it the question that we wanted to enter the username and password in Jamf Connect and then have them sent through automatically?
Yeah, use whatever Jamf Connect keeps.
Yeah.
As a reference.
I mean, if we're talking about the login window for Jamf Connect, it doesn't hang on to anything for that. So, as far as I know, no, I don't think we would be able to do that. I suppose
the password is in the keychain if you chose to keep
yeah,
it for Jamf Connect. Menu
so it'll be in the keychain at that point.
It's pretty much restricted in terms of access. So,
I think typically
anytime you try to touch the keychain with a script, be ready for drinking a lot of coffee, tea, whatever is your drug. Losing your hair, losing everyone in your family before saying, I can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's perhaps theoretically possible with a lot of scripting, but I think as a general sort of security principle, we don't really want to take user credentials and start throwing them around between applications on the device.
Okay. All right. I think we have time for one more here. When having to support multiple networks, obviously talking Wi-Fi here, how would you prioritize one SSID over another? For example, primary one being company network access that's certification-based or certificate-based, and a backup one that's internet-only PSK. And another example they provide is they need Macs to use the latter only when the former isn't available.
Never
Script it, probably.
Yeah, but even that.
Set preferred wireless network.
Yeah.
That's probably
Can
the
we
way to do it.
script that when it's provided as a profile? Haven't tried that.
I'm fairly sure we can. I was messing around with that the other day.
You can with the command line.
Service order.
So network setup is your favorite command line tool.
Yes.
It comes with an extended man page.
I think it's probably only about shorter than the curl man page, the network setup.
No, curl is beating everyone.
Yeah, but network setup binary has an awful lot of functionality built into it.
To change the wireless.
Yeah, to change the wireless. So you can set the preferred order for your networks within there. With regards to how soon that is going to apply, I think it's typically on the next login. It won't necessarily apply immediately. So it would be possible to script through Jamf Pro, deploy that, tell the machine for the particular interface. So you'd have to have some part of the script that would work out what the main interface is. It's probably usually EN0, but it's not guaranteed that it will be, and then go and reorder the networks based on that preference. I mean, macOS also does a fairly good job of prioritizing different types of networks itself, but it doesn't.
Yeah, in some cases, depending when your profiles arrive, they might be in the wrong order. So, yeah.
Cool.
Some scripting.
Cool. Cool. All right. If everybody in the room and joining virtually wants to get a hold of either of you, what's the best way to do that?
So, well, it depends for if you want to come and have a chat with us. Of course, for the people in the room, we'll be hanging around here for a little bit. We'll be around the services booth downstairs in the expo hall, so you can come find us there. We'll probably be there at some point.
Of course, 2 brain dates.
We have 2 brain dates. Yes,
One
I
each.
almost forgot about those. Exactly. So depending on
Tomorrow
which
morning.
one of us is your favourite, we have got a friendly competition here for it. Come and see us tomorrow morning to ask us more questions about this subject. And I believe are you on LinkedIn?
I am.
Yeah,
Somewhere.
all right. LinkedIn potentially, you guys on there. Or alternatively, you did want to engage Jamf Professional Services to come and help you with any of these solutions and unblock some of those challenges that you're having. Please get in touch with your customer success manager, is probably the best route. And then they can let us know that you wanted to talk to us and we can arrange scoping and take it from there.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you both.
One more thing, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Your colleagues are your best friends. Ask them, network admin, PKI admin. Don't try to guess what they want. Ask them what they want from you.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Saves a lot of time. Trust me.
Great advice. All right, cool. Well, thank you both. And if we can, let's give Andrew and Laurent a round of applause real quick and enjoy your next sessions.
Thank you very much.
Much.